everybody, and welcome to the Tatter-a-fact podcast, where PMU, business, life, and hard truths collide. I'm Taryn Darling with Girls Inc. here in Las Vegas. 25 years in the game and still keeping it raw, real, and unapologetic. So let's get into it. Before we start today's episode, I wanted to talk to you guys for a minute because this podcast is evolving a little bit. It's changing. We're making a pivot. For years, we're talking 5 years. We're in our 6th year of the Tatter-a-fact podcast, launching brand new episodes, everything PMU, every other Friday, every 2 weeks. So for all of that time, for all those years, Tatter-a-fact has been heavily focused on PMU education, mentorship, business, mindset, industry conversations, trends, you name it. We've discussed it here on Tatter-a-fact. And don't worry, that is not going anywhere, not even close, because I love it too much. I love talking about that stuff. I love those conversations. However, lately, I have been pulled towards something deeper. I just have, and I've been ignoring it. And the more I ignore it, the more frustrated I get. So I can't ignore it anymore. So over the years, a lot of the messages, all the messages mean a lot to me. But some of the messages that have meant the most to me were never really about pigments, needles, or technique. They were messages from people saying, thank you for being so honest. Thank you for talking about the hard stuff. Thank you for making me feel less alone. And I could go on and on. Really deeply personal messages like that. Some people really sit down and take the time and send me a really long email that goes into depth about what this podcast or myself or a combination thereof have done for them. And to all the people, all the listeners that have taken the time to send me a message, whether it's a really long email or just a little quick amen and thank you. I thank you. That's what keeps me going, is you guys listening and sending me messages, letting me know that you want to hear this. This is valuable. It means a lot to me. So Tatter-a-fact, as you've known it all these years, is not going anywhere. We're just doing something a little bit different. So anyway, those messages, they got me thinking about how very few people actually know me personally and my personal story. You know, most people in permanent makeup know me as the artist, probably first and foremost, the artist. They know me as the educator, the business owner, the girl that owns Girls Inc., the girl that works with LI. You know me as the mentor. Some of you might know me as the girl that dances at classes. But a lot of you, most of you, don't really know my beginnings, my story. You may know bits and pieces because I've touched on bits and pieces over the years, but you don't know the insecure kid, the anxious kid, the kid who struggled in school, and the kid who truly believed she was not smart. I truly believed with all my being I was not smart from as far back as I can remember. So I decided to create something new called Tatter-a-fact, the story series. This is going to be a long-form storytelling series where I slowly tell my story one chapter at a time. The good, the painful, the funny, the weird, of course, the embarrassing, and the beautiful. All of it. I'm going to tell all of it. And I'm going to tell it honestly. At the same time, I'm also creating Tatter-a-fact, the inner circle. And that will still be the podcast you know for PMU. We are still going to dive deep into PMU mentorship, business breakdowns, strategy, psychology, some motivational stuff, guests, trends, myths, you name it. Anything and everything PMU. That podcast, The Inner Circle, Tatter-a-fact, The Inner Circle, is not going anywhere, will exist, but it's going to be way better. Better than I could even ever have imagined it. 100%. So we are working on that. It's going to take us a little bit of time. It's going to take us maybe 8 weeks to get it launched. We're working on it right now. And I know 8 weeks sounds like a long time. A lot of you, and I thank you, love your Tatter-a-fact PMU episodes. And so I thank you for being patient while we make this change, this pivot. It's a level up, to be honest with you. And the wait will be worth it. I promise you, the wait will be so worth it. If you know anything about me at all, you know I don't do anything half-ass. I do it with all my heart, soul, truth, honesty, and I would never, ever, ever, ever do something that's been such a huge part of my life and your life for the last 5+ years without all those wonderful things that I just mentioned. I would never do Tatter-a-fact half-ass. So, and anything good, you know, it takes a little bit of time. Anything good is worth waiting for. So in the meantime, we have Tatter-a-fact, the story series. And I decided to do this, like I said, because I've had this calling. This, I know it sounds so cheesy, but it's true. It's just been gnawing at me. It's been gnawing at me. And maybe somewhere inside of these stories, you'll recognize pieces of yourself. That's my hope. And I'm putting off starting a little bit. I am a little nervous. I'm super nervous. Who am I to think anybody would want to listen to my story? And maybe nobody will. But we're going to give it a go. It's like, you know, it's like that saying, you know, if you can't get something off your mind, if you can't, you know, kick off the feelings, and it's just gnawing at you and you just can't get it off your mind, then it's probably worth doing. So with that said, Let's start at the beginning. Okay, so this episode 1, Tatter-a-fact, the story series, The Red Wagon. I grew up in South Portland, Maine, and looking back now, I realize how lucky I was to grow up there. It wasn't this tiny little town where everybody knew everybody. Wasn't that small. But it also wasn't a big city either, and certainly didn't feel like one. And I think as a kid, I felt I lived rural until I went somewhere rural. And I'm like, oh, okay, South Portland's not so bad. It's not that rural. It's not rural at all. But it's a small suburban city. So in South Portland, Maine, we had beaches everywhere. We had woods everywhere. We had lakes, lots of lakes nearby, kids everywhere. I mean, summers just felt endless there. Summers gave you that kind of feeling like everything was just going to be all right and the summer would never end. But it always did. And then you had to go back to school. So Portland had cliffs overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, places like Portland Headlight, Two Lights, Fort Williams. All of that was basically our playground. And I didn't even realize how lucky I was until years later as an adult, because to me, it was just normal life. That's where I lived. And I think that's true for a lot of people. I think a lot of people listening now, if you've left your hometown, you may not have realized just what a beautiful place it was and how lucky you were to grow up there, to have your childhood there until you went back as an adult. That's what happened to me. Back then, like I mentioned, it felt small and it felt ordinary. Now I realize it was expansive and it was extraordinary. During the summer, all the kids were outside constantly, riding bikes, playing kick the can, dodgeball, pick-up baseball games in the field between my house and my best friend's house. Those were the days, right? When kids went outside and actually played with other kids outdoors in the fresh air, touching grass, falling in the dirt. It's not so much like that anymore. We had to stay within yelling distance, or else, my parents would tell us. Or, what about this? You best be home when those street lights go on. How many of you heard that? And of course, I would push the boundaries, testing how far I could actually go and still hear my parents yelling, "Taryn!" Trying to perfectly time getting home within a minute or two of those streetlights coming on. Always pushing the boundaries, getting as much out of something as I possibly could. As much distance, as much time. That was me as a kid. The neighborhood dads actually cleared that field between me and my best friend's house. They cleared it out for us so we could play there. We could play baseball there, pick up baseball games with all the kids in the neighborhood, and sometimes the dads would join us. Looking back now, that kind of neighborhood was really, really super special. My mom, well, she had the FM AM transmitter radio on in the kitchen, sitting on the kitchen counter every morning. She'd have it on during breakfast, And of course, she had it on AM because AM was for adults. Boring. The cool stations that us kids listened to, all those stations were on FM. So she'd have her radio on AM, and she would sing along, sing loud, as if us kids really wanted to hear her sing. Good times. There were some Saturday nights. There'd be all kinds of adults, neighborhood adults, downstairs in our family room, laughing, drinking, dancing, the music blasting. And I absolutely loved watching it all happen. We weren't allowed down there, of course, during those parties, even though my bedroom was downstairs. We had to stay upstairs. And that was one of the few times we were allowed to go into the fancy living room. You know the fancy living room, the living room with the nice furniture. Ours was rust velvet furniture with a green shag rug, the new TV, the nice stereo, the piano, the living room with a kid's gate across the opening, like a reminder, you are not allowed entry. Anyway, I think that's where my love for music and performance came from. I was always putting on little comedy skits for my family, lip syncing in front of the mirror to my favorite bands, dressing up in clothes around the house, pretending I was a singer or a performer. I did that constantly. I lived in my imagination as a kid. One Christmas, I got my own stereo system. And after that, I became obsessed with records. That's all I wanted for birthdays or Christmas, records. I could disappear into music for hours. I'd stand in front of the mirror, lip syncing to my favorite bands, pretending I was somebody bigger than who I was. Someone who lived somewhere bigger and more exciting than South Portland, Maine. I think performance and storytelling were already inside me back then, although I didn't know it, but it was. My parents also worked really hard to create great memories for us. They took us on camping trips. We had lake Sundays with our grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. They made sure we had big birthdays, great birthdays, Christmas traditions, cookouts and family parties, ice cream after sporting events, and fun sleepovers with our friends. All the kids were allowed at our house. My parents made our house a safe place and welcomed all of our friends over. We always had a house full of kids, especially during the summer. And even though we drove them crazy, especially my mom, I think my parents preferred it was that way because they knew where we were. Every Sunday during the summer, we would all go to the lake together. And my family practically took over that damn place. 5 picnic tables pushed together, breakfast cooking, barbecue later in the day, cousins everywhere, adults laughing, kids running around like maniacs. It was awesome. Blueberry picking. We could go blueberry picking up at the lake. There was a little wooded area with all kinds of blueberry bushes. I loved blueberry picking. Walking up the hill to that tiny mom and pop store to buy a popsicle or frozen Snicker bars. Those are honestly some of the happiest memories of my life. And camping, oh my God. Oh my God. I loved camping. I loved being outdoors. I loved swimming, hiking, seeing the stars at night, hearing the sounds of the woods. Although it could be a little creepy, there was also something so calming about it. Cooking outdoors on the grill. But more than anything, I loved being with my family. They all drove me nuts, each and every one of them. But I loved them. I loved my family. Sometimes I was allowed to bring my best friend, who is still one of my best friends today. I loved the feeling of community. It felt like everybody at those campgrounds became family for the weekend. It felt safe. And if you camped as a kid or still camp now, you know exactly what I mean. And that's probably why I love four-wheeling. Kat and I bought four-wheelers during COVID. Our friends already had them, and we didn't want to be stuck in the house. You know, we were going crazy, and we decided, let's get some four-wheelers. Let's get some quads, and let's see what we got. And so we got obsessed, because when you're on a four-wheeler, when you go four-wheeling, you can go places otherwise you would never be able to get to, not by foot, not by a truck, not by a car. You have to be on a quad to get there. And we're seeing nature. We go to Utah and go to the Paiute trails, on these 5-day trips, and they're fabulous. So that love for camping, the woods, the stars at night, cooking outdoors on a grill, all that followed me through my adult years. I didn't always keep up with it for a good section of my adulthood, but I'm back at it, and I sure do love it. Summers and winters in Maine, well, they almost felt like two completely different childhoods, right? Quite contrasting. You have summer in Maine with, all the beaches and lakes and camping and fishing and baseball games and all that stuff. And then you had winter. And if you've never experienced a Maine winter, well, you should. You should one day. But two contrasting, completely different childhoods. Summers, they were 10-speed bikes and beach days, wind blowing through your hair, beach towels stuffed in your backpack, Hawaiian tropic oil, maybe $5 or $10 in your pocket for soda and Italian sandwiches. If you never had an Italian sandwich from Maine, oh my God, I was obsessed with them. Amato's makes the best Italian sandwiches, in my opinion. I couldn't eat enough Italian sandwiches. And back then, I could eat like a whole one. And they're big. They're like 12-footers. When I go back now, I can only eat half. That's it. And Kat don't like them, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I can't wrap my head around that. But I was obsessed with them back then, and it's one of the first things I go get myself when I go back to visit. Most Mainers, or maniacs, as we like to call ourselves, were obsessed with Italian sandwiches. Still are. It's something you don't outgrow. So the Italian sandwich. Winters, well, that was a whole different world. Cold, snowy. My best friend, well, she had this huge hill behind her house. And when it snowed, all of us kids would beg our parents to let us go sledding. Her mom would turn on those floodlights, and we'd stay out there for hours, flying down that hill on our sleds and toboggans, even when it got dark. And it was fabulous. We'd wax our sleds, because that made the sleds go faster. Make little jumps in the snow so we could get some height, do some jumps. Whatever we could do to go faster and make it more exciting, sledding down that hill, we would do it. We'd put our bread bags over our 3 pair of socks before putting on our LL Bean boots, just trying to keep our feet warm and dry. But your feet never stayed warm and dry in Maine. They just never did, even with 3 pair of socks and the bread bag hack. Our feet always got cold, especially your toes. By the time you got home, started peeling off the layers, your toes were cold. We go downstairs where the wood stove was, put our feet as close to the wood stove as we could to thaw out our frostbitten toes. But we loved it, and we do it again the next day. Hang your socks. We'd hang our socks on the wood stove so they could dry, or my mom had a little hanger by the wood stove so they could hang and dry and be ready for the next day. Snowball fights. Man, they were a blast. Who didn't love a good snowball fight? I sure did. Snow angels, building igloos, snow forts. Well, you needed a good snow fort, right? To protect yourself from flying snowballs. Those were our winters. They were a blast. Almost as fun as our summers. Almost. I had this collie, this dog. He was a collie, and his name was Royal. Man, I loved that dog. He was the best. We had a harness for him, and once the roads in the neighborhood got icy, we'd hook our sleds up to his harness, and he'd pull us flying down the neighborhood streets just as fast as he could run. That dog would be barking his head off, tail wagging back and forth, looking proud as hell, hauling us kids around on the icy streets while we screamed and laughed behind him. It was a hoot. He loved it. We loved it. But even though there was a lot of love in my childhood, lots of love, there was also tension too. My parents fought a lot. Not all the time. There were absolutely periods where they seemed happy and they seemed in love. But in between those moments, there could be screaming, yelling, threats of divorce, threats of moving out. And as a kid, that really affected me. I became, extremely observant, probably too observant for a child. I noticed mood changes, tone shifts, tension in the house. I looked for cues and clues. I would eavesdrop, sneak around corners, try to figure out what was happening emotionally around me. Not because I was a bad kid, but because I was scared and I wanted to know what was happening around me. I remember one night sneaking upstairs late to get a snack out of the fridge after everyone went to bed. I did that often. That fancy living room I told you about, you know, the one we weren't allowed in unless it was a special occasion. Well, when I went upstairs to get my snack, I peeked in there and I saw my dad sleeping on the couch. It startled me. The next morning, the couch was perfectly made up, like it had never happened. My dad got up and got ready for work early. So he had plenty of time before us kids got up to clean up the scene. So the next night, I actually set my alarm to wake up around 1 a.m. just so I could go sneak upstairs and check again. And there he was, sleeping on the couch. The next morning, everything was cleaned up again like it never happened. I was probably in the 6th grade when this started happening. That's how observant I was. That's how anxious I was. I always needed to know what was happening because deep down I was afraid my family was going to fall apart. My dad used to tell this story about me all the time. He said when I was really little, maybe 2 or 3 years old, I'd get so worried that my little eyebrows would actually scrunch together. And I'd get those little lines between my brows. You know, the ones we get now and Botox fixes perfectly. Well, I would get those lines between my brows, 2 and 3 years old. And he'd pick me up, rub his thumb between my eyebrows, and say, "Relax, Peanut." That's what he called me, Peanut. And he'd rub away and just tell me to relax. "Don't worry. Don't be a worrywart," he'd say. And even now, when I think about that, it still gets me emotional because my dad was strict, very strict, military strict. He was in the military full-time, 8 years. And then he went into the Army National Guard and then the Air Force National Guard. And he did a total of 28 or 30 years, I believe. He never really wanted to leave the military. But he didn't want to be full-time because he wanted to raise his children where him and my mom were born and raised. And that was Maine. That was South Portland, Maine. So he was strict and a disciplinarian. He was rugged. And he was strong. And he was larger than life to me as a kid. He was Irish. He was built like a brick shithouse. He'd stand in front of the mirror, flexing his muscles and kissing his biceps just to annoy my mother. And it did. But it would make us kids laugh. All of us would be like, "Oh, Dad, you're so stupid." My mom, "Oh, Danny, good God." He loved it. He didn't care. He didn't care. He'd keep looking in the mirror, call himself a handsome devil. Turn around, make his abs hard and say, "Go ahead. Go ahead. Give me your best shot. Go ahead. Come on. Give me your best shot." And I would. Never fazed him. Never fazed him. He was strong. And he was my hero. To me, he was Superman. He had high standards, high expectations, especially for me, being the oldest and the only girl. But at that exact time, while he was strict, demanding, high expectations, a disciplinarian, he was also incredibly loving. He was super affectionate. He was very hands-on, and he was very present. He hugged us constantly, told us he loved us constantly. He tucked us into bed every single night. And even though I probably acted embarrassed by him sometimes, as kids do, truthfully, he made me feel really safe. I admired him deeply, and I wanted to be just like him in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, I am. I think a part of the reason I became so observant later in life is because of those years growing up trying to emotionally read the room, trying to figure out if everything was okay. Were my parents going to stay together? Were they going to split up? Trying to feel safe. I had to know, but never knew until the day I knew, if you know what I mean. Now, despite all of this, there was another side of me, a hustler. Like most kids, I had chores and I got allowance, but that allowance was not enough. I had to go roller skating 2 or 3 times a week. I liked going to the movies with my friends. I wanted more clothes than I was allotted according to the family budget. I loved clothes way back then, still do. Fashion. It has improved, my fashion sense. Thank gosh. My allowance didn't even begin to cover all the things I wanted to do or just wanted. At around 12 years old, I started collecting cans and bottles on Sunday mornings. Saturday nights, all the older kids and teenagers would party and leave their beer cans all around the party hideouts. And I knew where all those party hideouts were. So Sunday morning, I'd grab my little red wagon and go collect all the cans I could find. Part of me felt embarrassed. Sometimes. That's true. Sometimes I felt embarrassed, especially if the popular kids saw me. I'd kind of cringe inside because rolling around a little red wagon collecting cans wasn't exactly glamorous. There was definitely a stigma attached to it. And I felt that stigma a time or two. But another part of me felt something stronger than embarrassment. I felt freedom. I felt independence. I felt excitement. And I felt pride. If I filled enough bags, if I collected enough cans, filled enough bags, I could cash them down at the redemption center, which was a good 30-minute walk from my house. But I was also walking away with 15 or 20 bucks. And for a kid back then, that was real money. That was good money. I loved knowing I earned it myself. I loved having my own money. I loved feeling independent. It allowed me to do what I wanted to do. It allowed me to buy more clothes. It allowed me to be free. I didn't know it then, but I was learning from collecting cans. I was learning resourcefulness, work ethic, delayed gratification, independence, and problem solving. Back then, I thought I was just simply collecting cans. I realize now that little red wagon was one of the very first signs of who I was becoming. Because earning money didn't just feel exciting to me. It felt freeing, as I mentioned. It felt empowering. I think even back then, without realizing it. Part of me was already chasing independence, security, and freedom. And the crazy part is, even with all of that, I still thought I wasn't smart. I thought I wasn't smart. Because in my mind, smart people got good grades. In my mind, smart people understood math and science. Smart people were in the accelerated classes. But that wasn't me. But maybe, just maybe, intelligence looks different sometimes. Maybe intelligence also looks like surviving, adapting, observing, creating, building, protecting, figuring things out. Maybe some of us were intelligent long before we had proof. We just didn't know it yet. And before I go, I just want to say thank you. This is not really my comfort zone. I'm used to teaching. I'm used to educating. I'm used to talking about business and PMU, strategy, and all the things I've learned over the years. But sitting down and opening up my personal life like this with you all, it feels different. It feels a little vulnerable and it feels a little scary. But for some reason, As I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I've felt really pulled in this direction. I think maybe because the older I get, the more I realize how many people are quietly carrying insecurities, carrying fears, sadness, deep sadness, confusion, or stories they've never fully talked about either, or things they never really quite understood about themselves. And maybe by telling my story, somebody else feels a little less alone in theirs. So thank you for listening today. And don't forget, in the near future, Tatter-a-fact, the inner circle, will be back. And again, that's where we're going to go deeper into PMU, business, mindset, healed results, pigments, confidence, branding, difficult clients, entrepreneurship, psychology, burnout, the real stuff. The things a lot of people in this industry either won't say or don't know how to explain. And I cannot wait for that. I cannot wait to get back to those podcasts. And I will let you guys know as soon as it officially goes live. Until next time, thanks for sitting with me, listening to my story, and letting me share these pieces of my life with you. Wherever you are in your own journey, just remember, sometimes we don't realize who we're becoming until we finally have the courage to look back. I'll see you in the next chapter. Peace.